Hello and welcome to Top Story. What to make of the controversial visit by former US President Jimmy Carter to the Syrian capital Damascus? His meetings in Damascus with Khaled Meshal, the leader of the militant Palestinian movement Hamas, have brought criticism from both Israel and the United States. A spokesman for President George W. Bush said they were not wise and gave Hamas a credibility it didn't deserve. Washington describes Hamas as a terrorist organization and refuses to negotiate with it. But many argue that it's impossible to achieve a peace settlement between the Palestinians and Israel unless Hamas is involved. In his talks with Meshal on Friday and Saturday, Jimmy Carter discussed how Hamas could be brought into a Middle East peace plan and be persuaded to end its opposition to talks between Israel and Mahmoud Abbas. He pressed Hamas to declare a truce with Israel and to release the Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit, who was captured by Hamas 2 years ago. Hamas leaders gathered in Damascus over the weekend to discuss the ideas raised by Carter, but have yet to give a formal response. Well, joining me now to discuss the visit is Ofer Bronstein, who's president of the International Forum for Peace in the Middle East. Thanks very much for being on Top Story. How significant do you think these talks with Hamas and Jimmy Carter are?
Jimmy Carter is a Nobel Prize for Peace. He's a former president of the United States of America. He's a very important political person in the world, has a lot of credibility, and Jimmy Carter is the first one. If he got the Nobel Prize for Peace, because he was the first one to make sure that Israeli and an Arab country are achieving peace, which was 30 years ago, exactly this year, the peace agreement between Israel and Egypt. So Jimmy Carter has a lot of credibility in the region as a peacemaker.
Some people are calling this a precedent. Is it an ice-breaking move by Jimmy Carter, do you think?
Listen, I believe that Jimmy Carter is not a teenager who is having moods. I believe that he's a person who is very mature, very responsible, and I believe that he's doing it from the bottom of his heart, hoping and believing that it's the right thing to do. If he's right or if he's wrong, the near future will tell us. What we know by the mouth of President Assad and Prime Minister Ulmer of this weekend. President Assad declared yesterday and Prime Minister Ulmer Friday that talks between Israel and Syria are taking place by a third party somewhere, somehow, and they both admitted it publicly. Now, we know that the Hamas is in Damascus. We know that the Hamas won't do any step without the blessing of Syria and Assad. And we know that Israel is indirectly negotiating the release of Gilad Shalit with the Hamas by many third parties, mainly the Egyptian, but not only the Egyptian, were involved in the last couple of years of talks with the Hamas. If talks with the Hamas will bring the Hamas to be a responsible organization and not anymore a terrorist organization, if talks with the Hamas will bring the Hamas to release Gilad Shalit and the Israeli government to release Palestinian prisoners, I believe that these talks are absolutely welcome.
And Hamas seems to be taking them very seriously as well. The senior leadership gathered in Damascus over the weekend, apparently still meeting to discuss the proposals put forward by Jimmy Carter. But clearly they're going to want something in return. I mean, what is the bottom line as far as Hamas is concerned, do you think?
I believe that Hamas wants two things. It wants, first of all, to be recognized as a political organization, as a very important part of this of the Palestinian people. Hamas was democratically elected 2.5 years by the Palestinian people, and we have to respect it. But at the same time, if they want to be respected, they have to act in a responsible way, which they didn't in the last couple of years, which they didn't in the last few years. So Hamas wants to be recognized politically by the region, by the international community in one way, and Hamas wants to achieve some political action by the release of few hundred prisoners by Israel in the counterpart of the release of Gilad Shalit. If these two tasks will be achieved for the Hamas, and the Hamas will start behaving in a responsible way, recognizing Israel, stopping launching missiles toward Israel on a daily basis, and recreating an atmosphere of a coalition of Palestinian national coalition with President Mahmoud Abbas, I believe that we become partners for talks and for peace.
What chance do you think the release of Gilad Shalit?
You know what, I don't want to make speculation, it's too heavy. The family of Shalit, as the family of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners are waiting for the release of their sons for many years, so I don't want to make speculation. I do hope that everybody will be responsible on the Israeli side, on the Hamas side, to make sure that to achieve peace talks, we have to respect one another, to recognize one another, and to be responsible. And if Jimmy Carter, which is again a Nobel Prize for Peace for achieving peace between Israel and Egypt, will achieve these goals of bringing the Hamas to the table, of bringing back the Hamas to a national unity government with Mahmoud Abbas, of the Hamas of ceasing fire against Israel, and the Hamas releasing Gilad Shalit, Jimmy Carter achieved something very important.
Hamas seem to have been talking with Jimmy Carter about the possibility of a long-term truce and the release of prisoners in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners. But the idea of a long-term truce is not something that's new from Hamas. We've heard it before. The stumbling block has always been, at least as far as the Israeli side is concerned, it's the question of the recognition of Israel. Do you think that Hamas is prepared to go that far?
I don't know. I have the feeling that they don't. They want to play the extremists by not recognizing Israel. If I was Israeli Prime Minister, I will accept a long-term ceasefire with the Hamas, as it's being done for the last 30 years between Israel and Syria. We don't have peace between Israel and Syria, but we have a ceasefire that is absolutely respected by the Syrian and by Israel for the last 30 years. So if we can achieve a ceasefire at this stage, and later on, I hope to bring the Hamas and the Palestinian people to the recognition, which the majority of the Palestinian people are recognizing the state of Israel. They did elect, 87% of the Palestinian people did elect Mahmoud Abbas as president, and we know exactly what is the position toward Israel of their president, Mahmoud Abbas. So Israel should accept, at the first stage, in my opinion, a ceasefire, and the second one, the recognition by the Hamas, as by most of the Palestinian people of Israel, and of Israel of the right of the Palestinian to a state. And I hope that we will achieve these goals by the end of the year.
I'm going to have to interrupt you there, I'm afraid. That's all we have time for today. Thanks to our guest, Ofer Bronstein. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of Top Story. Goodbye.